Hi, this is Josh Adams with Unueco Partio. I haven't talked any about identity for a while, and I wanted to talk a little bit about gender identity. I was reading some news earlier about uh, complaints a passenger had with an airline, and that the airline was not gender neutral. And it's And this type of complaints are forcing corporations and other institutions to change things from being said his and hers to say theirs. And I was kind of want to talk a little bit about how gender kind of forms our identity. Um, I've always had the perception that gender as a social construct is kind of like a cycle. Like, you know, we have a gender. Like, I definitely call myself a he. Um, and certain traits that might be common with that gender start being portrayed out into the culture. And I think whenever something becomes common enough, that starts to become a norm for a culture. And and that culture starts to project itself onto newer people in a society. Like, I know when I was growing up, sometimes how gender was portrayed caused conflict in my life. I, like in high school, I had some people, to include a sibling, wonder, is he gay? And a big part of that was because I did not typically portray the type of masculinity that my culture projected upon those who identified themselves as male. And and it's something that I have experienced regularly throughout throughout my life. Um, I'll tell you, like I'm someone who enjoys sports. I enjoy things like wrestling and fighting. But then again, sometimes you'll see me out tending to flowers I've grown. I like flowers. I like birds. Um, I'm not actually macho. If I had my own gender identity, it would be somewhere more. If you had like a neutral, like this is male, this is female, I would probably be more towards neutral than male. Um, Even though by my outer appearance, I may sometimes seem, pardon me, I may seem more masculine than I really am. Um, and sometimes I think society, whether it's within the family structure or even bigger institutions, gender is something that we highly struggle with, especially when there are people who exhibit behaviors or desires or traits that cannot be easily confined in these little boxes that we make that are just male or female. Um, you know, sure, like on TV, it might be common that on a Wednesday night, basketball wives will attract a lot of young women to watch that show. The marketing for it is for it, but it's also true that it's not exclusively women who watch basketball wives. It's maybe about 85%. There's 15% of people who identify themselves as male who watch basketball wives. Um, and so I think we need to like understand that just because something might be a majority doesn't make it an entirety. there are various nuances that makes each individual who they are. Um, the whole gender identity movement today, is focused on people who may gravitate more towards neutral, or who may have an appearance of one way, but perhaps may function in life in a different way. And I think we need to let people know it's perfectly cool to be a man, to be a woman, to be neutral, um, or however else you want to portray it. Because the reality is these boxes that we've created for ourselves, they create more conflict than anything. We need to be able to embrace the full spectrum of who we are. And I think gender is one of those simple things that needs to be addressed. We shouldn't persecute people for having a gender. Shouldn't persecute people for being different. I mean, there's a boy in a kindergarten class who doesn't want to play with Hot Wheels but wants to play with the Barbie. He shouldn't be ostracized for it. It should be like, oh, he likes dolls, and be like, that's perfectly cool. You would start treating them, the interest just like you would with the girl. You could ask, oh, what's your favorite doll? Is there any doll you'd like for your birthday? Instead of saying, no, you should not, because it does not fit in this little box we have made. You must fit into this box. How do I feel about everything having to be gender neutral? I think that's going to be a source of conflict as well. I think since a majority of people do prefer to identify themselves as a particular gender, that should be also allowed and welcomed. I just think we should find a way to not exclude anyone. Just, anyone that we come across, we're okay to shake their hand, give them a hug, and tell them, you're okay as you are. The better we can come across to addressing and accepting and welcoming all the different ways that we can express our gender, whether you're a man who's just totally macho, or a woman who's dainty and feminine, to everything in between. There's a lot of in between out there. There's a lot of in between. In order to build unity in this world, we're going to have to not exclude a single person for who they are. And we're going to have to embrace each other because the transgendered person might be a member of your family, or the homosexual might be, or the eunuch, or someone who's asexual. There's so many different ways to even think about it. But we're all part of one family here. And I want everyone in my family to be included at the dinner table. And I want them included in yours as well. So this wraps up my talk on gender identity. And if you have any thoughts, feel free to comment on unuecopartio.org or on my YouTube channel, Unueco Partio. And, of course, if you're a friend of mine, you're more than welcome to communicate with me privately. I hope you all have a great day, no matter who you are.